Jonathan Taylor still being actively shopped around the league. Hell, the Indianapolis Colts have a football game to play tomorrow night, 8 Eastern, against the Philadelphia Eagles. We talk about all of that with Kent Sterling today on this podcast. What is going on, No Horsing Around family? Zach Boyd back at it again. And we're excited about this one, guys. We got the one, the only, two big brains. Breakfast with Kent, midday with Kent Sterling. How you been, Kent? You're so busy. You made enough time to get on here today. We're excited to have you, man.
I'm happy to do it, Zach. A lot of fun. I always enjoy your work, so I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. So, Kent, 6 o'clock this morning, I'm scrolling through the news. Who's going to trade for Jonathan Taylor, all of this stuff. And then I get this bright idea, which, by the way, doesn't happen very often. I'm going to go over and listen to Breakfast with Kent and see what Kent thinks about this. And you made what I thought was, maybe my thoughts were, too close to the forest to see the trees. And you said maybe the best option here is Jonathan Taylor just to play for the Colts. Simple. Yeah. Just curious your thoughts on what kind of got you to that point, because I thought it was just an incredible take and an opinion, because we've been looking so far out. We haven't been looking internally very well as you did this morning.
Well, if you look at different teams in different holes, like who's got a hole, who's got a need at running back, who's got cap space, who has a young quarterback that could benefit from a running game, all of these things. And the Colts, that's them. They need a running back. They need Jonathan Taylor. He's been there. He knows the offense. They've got a young quarterback that they need to kind of supplement with somebody they can count on to go turn 1st and 10 into 2nd and 4, or 3rd or 2nd and 8 into 3rd and 2. The Colts are the perfect landing site for this if they will just use some of their cap space in order to get this done. Like a short-term expense in 2023, I think could get this done. And if you guaranteed Jonathan the money that he would get next year in a franchise deal, I think you can start having a meaningful conversation about him coming back to this team.
Yeah, so you're not on the side, Kent, of this just being basically not repairable, beyond repair. Is it really just about business and money, in your opinion, or do you think that there's just too much bad blood, too much friction behind closed doors, where he's basically said, I don't want to put a horseshoe on again at all?
I remember having an uncle, and he's passed away now, my Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob was a guy who scared the living hell out of me. He was really, really loud, and he was unpleasant to be around. But by God, every Christmas, he gave all of his nephews and nieces a brand new $10 bill.
Yeah.
So I liked Uncle Bob a lot. Cash does something to warm the heart of normal, American men. And Jonathan Taylor, I think, feels disrespected by the amount of money that's being paid to him. He knows he's going to go out and he's going to give himself up physically in a way that's going to visit him when he's in his 30s, 40s, and 50s, and he wants to get paid for it. I get that. He's got his signature also on a contract, and that's meaningful too. But I think somehow, some way, the Colts and Jonathan Taylor can come together in this thing. And if Jim Irsay brings him into that, the cruiser, the Colts cruiser, and says, Jonathan, I got an idea. How about an extension where we give you $10 million up front, and we guarantee the second year, which will be at the franchise level that we expect, something around $11 million. And then we can talk about a third year where you've got now, maybe we've got a mutual option at $13 million guaranteed or something. Maybe they can have that conversation, and all of a sudden the 15-minute meeting ends in big bear hugs and everybody loving each other. We'll see. Some guys are really principled. And some guys, you say the wrong thing to the wrong people, and they are going to take it to their graves. Maybe Jonathan Taylor's one of those guys, and I know that Jim Irsay's got a bit of a memory himself in that kind of circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, Ken, I kind of see it as a leverage play. I think the Colts have gotten to this point where they're like, well, you know what? You just go out and find out where the market's at. We have the opportunity. We really can have all the cards here when it comes down to it. And what if he goes out there and he explores? And a guy like Austin Eckler in the offseason was kind of granted that same right. Go out, see what you got. Lo and behold, he's a Charger this year. He's playing football for the Chargers. I think it's prudent that they did that. I think it's something that had to be done sooner rather than later. When we got that Tuesday mandate next week of that PUP list, as that's going to change things of how the season goes along. You find this to be a leverage play here from the Indianapolis Colts, or you think it's a little bit more of, hey, we're just tired of this distraction every single day. Shane Steichen getting asked the same question over and over and over again.
Jim Irsay holds all the cards. He's got the contract that's enforceable at $4.3 million a year. If Jonathan Taylor wants to sit, then that contract remains in place in perpetuity at $4.3 million a year. They've got the ability that was negotiated with the players' union to put him on a franchise tag next year at about $11 million, and the year after that at 120% of what the original franchise tag is. You know, the Colts hold all the cards. There's no way out for Jonathan Taylor other than the acquiescence of the Colts and Jim Irsay. There's just no way around it. So I think that the Colts doing what they did and allowing Jonathan Taylor to go out and negotiate a trade and try to have his agent negotiate a new deal and extension, I think was a bit – I don't think that it was a serious, hey, go out and negotiate a deal. I think it was – go out and do your due diligence and figure it out. Go on this fact-finding mission, and you're going to find that the market is very, very soft for running backs. And it's not just the Colts not wanting to pay running backs. It's everybody in the NFL not wanting to pay running backs not named Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, one thing about it, we're going to find out here in a short amount of time of how far his agent gets. As promised in the intro, we got a football game tomorrow, Kent. We're actually playing football. I know we're surrounded by this Jonathan Taylor saga. Thoughts just on Anthony Richardson going out there and playing the third game, and maybe just double back. Did you agree with or disagree with the idea of him not playing at all in the second game?
You know what? Not playing is up to Shane Steichen. What I didn't like is them not telling us. Because that sent fans into Lucas Oil Stadium in the dark. It sent dads with kids, dads who maybe don't make a whole lot of money, ponying up a couple hunch to go see the Colts and go and have their kid watch Anthony Richardson's debut in a Colts jersey, and then he isn't there. And that isn't right, and it isn't fair, and I think it's bad business to burn a bridge by betraying trust.
Yep.
That said, it's Steichen's decision how he deploys his troops and how he gets them ready for September 10th, that he's going to play tomorrow. I want to see him with all of the first-team offensive players, and you've got to do that. If the Eagles are going to start their guys, you can't have second-unit offensive linemen protecting Anthony Richardson. Can't do that. And there's not a hell of a lot of point in having the twos from a receiving perspective go out and play with Anthony Richardson. So I expect to see the entire offense out there for a few series, try to get another couple of throws under his belt, try to read. And I think that, Shane Steichen is going to play righteously with Nick Sirianni and the Eagles, and they're going to be all right, despite the fight yesterday and all that nonsense. Yeah, I think they're going to go out and they're going to play against each other and put Richardson in a position where he learns a little bit. It's no skin off the Eagles' backs, and it's no skin off the Colts either. I don't think anybody wants to get anybody hurt out there tomorrow night. So I think, you know what? Give Anthony Richardson as many quality reps as you can against a really high-quality defense, and that's what the Eagles have got.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way I think is in that second game, he can never get that game back, right? He can never get those live reps. But ultimately, like you said, Shane Steichen is a decision maker. Probably from a PR standpoint, could have handled that better because you mentioned I was there. I'm a season ticket holder, and I was let down, man. I mean, I know I get to go to all the games this year, but it did deflate the building a bit when everybody found that out. Ken, I'll come back to this for you. What the hell's going on with this offensive line? I mean, Chris Ballard sees something that we are not able to see just as common folks watching football games, because it looks like you could have a couple guys and upgrade a little bit there.
Yeah, he doesn't like doing that. He is intractable. He believes in building from the inside out. That's going to be on his gravestone. That's what he said during the offseason. And he believes in these guys that he gave 3 big-time extensions to Nelson, to Smith, and to Kelly. So they better pony up and they better play. Bernard Ryman as a left tackle, I think is going to be much better this year. And just through his ascendance, I think the line is going to be better. I think that the upgrade that was really, really necessary was Chris Strasser being gone and Tony Sperano Jr. being hired. These guys respond well to an emotional kind of rah-rah, let's get after it, let's be a team, let's 5 as one, just like Googe was. I think Sperano is that guy, and I think that these guys are going to respond to that to the extent that they can. The thing that I don't know is physically, where is Ryan Kelly? And he's got the foot, but elsewhere he's had problems. Physically, where's Quentin Nelson? Those are the two big questions. That's the key with this offensive line. Can those guys play physically if they choose to, if they've got, the emotional wiring to? Can they play at a Pro Bowl level? If they can, there's going to be a pretty good offense. And if they can't, Anthony Richardson's going to be running for his life, and Deion Jackson is going to average about 1.8 per carry.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't know what you got there until you find out at its full disposal. Be interesting. It'd be a tough battle against the Philadelphia Eagles because they've got some real dogs on that line. You'd have to think that you'll get a little bit better. Flipping over to defense there, cornerback position, we're very young. I mean, there's no question about that. Darrell Baker Jr. has had a pretty good training camp, but hell, everybody's good in training camp, right, Kent? Like, we always have the training camp superstar, but when it's time to perform against the number ones, do we even have a number one when it comes to cornerback?
No.
Yeah.
No, we don't right now. Dallas Flowers played, the last 4 games last year, and the reason he didn't is because he didn't earn the trust of Ron Miles, the secondary coach. We were told that by Chris Ballard. Okay. Well, why did Dallas Flowers take, 13 games to earn the trust of Ron Miles? And then you do have DJ Baker. And we found out that he likes to be called DJ. And when we asked about Darrell, Zaire Franklin was like, who?
Yeah.
Baker. Oh, DJ. So, okay, we'll call him DJ. We got used to calling Darius Shaq. So, all right, this isn't that difficult. Juju Brents, the problem for me is Juju Brents is going to make errors at that cornerback position. And when he makes errors, he's only got 4.53 40 speed to make up for those errors. He ain't going to be able to outrun his errors. Darius Rush is a little bit different. We saw in that joint practice in Philadelphia that A.J. Brown put the wood to Kenny Moore. But nobody's going to put Kenny Moore isolated on A.J. Brown ever. You know what I mean? Like, Gus Bradley wasn't born yesterday, and that isn't going to happen outside of a joint practice under any circumstance. The one guy that I've really kind of liked, but we haven't seen him much with ones other than in special teams, is Jalen Jones, the 7th rounder. I like him. I think that Rush has the speed to be able to play cornerback at an NFL level. He's just got to learn the technique. Brent has to be perfect in his technique because he doesn't have the speed. He's got Rocky Sean's speed. He's got to have better technique than Rocky Sean. Or we've got another 2nd rounder who can't play because he's too slow, and nobody needs to revisit Rocky Sean. And that 2019 draft, which I talked about this morning, holy moly. Like, you look at those cats, what a terrible draft. And only Ryan Grigson's draft in 2013 keeps the 2019 draft from maybe being the worst in the history of this franchise.
Yeah, I mean, you draft Quincy Wilson, he's out of the league. Then you draft Rocky Yassin, you trade back to get him. And then now you got another guy who's long. I mean, I know he loves those physical traits, but hell, you got to be able to run a little bit, Kent,
Yeah.
When you get out there and play football. Speaking of Jalen Jones, maybe his best ability in training camp so far has been his availability, right? Like, they've just been so hurt with all of these younger guys. It's really given him an opportunity maybe to take a step up and carve out a role for himself on this football team.
He pops. You walk around on the sidelines, and whose number do your eyes go to over and over again? And I had 2 of those guys this camp. One was Titus Leo, defensive end out of Wagner, and then Jalen Jones. It was constantly like, okay, 40. 40 is not a great football number. You got Gale Sayers, and then who else has been 40? I think Billy Bates with the Cowboys. That's the only one I can think of. Maybe Dick Anderson way back with the Dolphins. So you saw him, and then 91, just when he'd walk by me, he'd be like, damn, that's a physical specimen. So those 2 guys kind of popped a little bit. And Chris Ballard said, and I thought I thought it was kind of funny. I don't think he meant it the way I took it, that, hey, we drafted 3 quarterbacks for a reason. And what I think he meant was Jalen Jones, they really like.
Yeah.
What I took it as is we have no confidence in our ability to pick a decent cornerback. So we're kind of throwing crap at the wall and hoping that something sticks. And maybe it's going to be Jalen Jones. Either way, a man's got to know his limitations. And maybe Chris Ballard is in touch with that limitation of his, knowing that Quincy Wilson in 17 is a second and Rock Yassin as a second in 19 is a portent of things to come with Juju Brents, and he better go get some cover.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Last question before we wrap up. Had a guy at work ask me this question. I thought, you know what? I'll save it and I'll ask Kent. Let's just take Jonathan Taylor out of the equation. Who the hell is our best player on this team?
Oh,
I mean, that's a hard question for me to answer. I mean, really hard for me to answer at this point.
The 2 reflexive answers are the 2 highest paid guys, Shaq Leonard and Quentin Nelson. But your non-ball side linebacker and your left guard had better not be your best 2 players. DeForest Buckner, too. You don't want a defensive tackle to be your best player either, unless you're the Los Angeles Rams and you've got a generational talent like Aaron Donald at that position. The best player needs to be Anthony Richardson. If Anthony Richardson is the best player on this team, I think it can win without Jonathan Taylor. I think it can win 7, maybe 8 games. If Anthony Richardson isn't the best player on the team, I think they're a 4 or 5 win team.
Yeah, there's no question about it. That's a great question. I know. I guess I would have to go with maybe Michael Pittman Jr. But if that's what you're rolling with this season, it could be you're in for a little bit of a uphill sled.
Even if you're just isolating it to top tier.
Yeah.
Like the scouts call them blue players, right? You grade them in that blue area. Who's elite on this team? Who's somebody you point to and say, we got that locked down? If we lose that guy, we got big trouble. Other than Richardson, you really don't have that cat on this team. Like that defensive, we talked about the secondary. What safety do you mind losing? I mean, that sounds, cruel. Yeah. But you mind losing Nick Cross or Julian Blackmon or Rodney Thomas or who? Who's the guy that you would hate to lose among the safeties or the cornerbacks? You have great depth there because you don't have anybody at the top of the pyramid who's untouchable.
Yeah, I mean, Rick Venturi, ambient players, and I don't think this team's really got a lot of ambient football players on this team, but we'll see more to come. Hopefully that ambient player develops into Anthony Richardson. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, like, rate, review, share, and subscribe. Join this No Horsing Around family, and when you're done doing that, head over to Kent's page. Kent, let them know all about where they can find you. And if you've been under a rock and you don't know where Kent Sterling's at, he's going to let you know right now how to find him.
If you just follow me on Twitter at Kent Sterling, I post everything up there. I post everything on Facebook, the new thing, whatever it is, the Instagram kind of offshoot, Threads, I guess it's called, KentSterling.com. And then Kent Sterling on YouTube. Search on YouTube Kent Sterling, and there I am. It's all Kent Sterling all the time.
There you go. You can get all the Kent Sterling you want if you head on over to YouTube, guys, and I would encourage you to do that. And as always, we say this, guys, go Colts.